Most writers would be happy to have sold more than 1 million copies of their books.
And you have.
Yes.
And
it's funny. I don't consider that success.
You don't consider that success, and it drives me crazy. I really am excited about when people access this book, that it isn't just the book. It is the world you've kind of created around it.
The book is really an invitation into a world.
How do you help people find their authentic medium or platform for how to communicate?
Yeah, I think that...
You're listening to the Mindshift podcast. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
I sat out with Matt Pagan, and we talked for like 4 hours last night.
Now, Matt Pagan is your surfer friend.
He's not my surfer friend. He's my friend, who also was a pro surfer. He has an amazing surf company called Pagan USA. He's also a surfboard shaper. So he designs his own surfboards. And we were talking through that whole business last night. He's an amazing guy. He actually is going to jump on the arena today.
That's awesome.
The arena call.
But you won't say this, but Pagan is a company you helped him start.
Yes. Yeah. And he also owns, he's a part of a company that his dad started called Pagan Construction. They're one of like the best construction kind of GC companies in the South Bay.
Yeah, they're saving my house right now.
They are. They're gutting your house right now, getting all that mold out. But he also like walked me through all that. It was really cool. He's a great guy. So we hung out forever. But my voice is a little raspy from the talking.
That's right. It gives you a little character.
No, it does. It does. Okay, so
it takes 1,000 cigarettes to get that voice.
No, Dad, never. But here's the thing. So talking about the sound of my voice, frequencies. We want to talk about frequencies.
Well, that's a good topic because I have a book coming out, and really, it's less than 2 months.
That makes me so nervous.
It's called The 7 Frequencies of Communication: The Hidden Language of Human Connection.
The hidden language of love. No, the hidden language of human connection.
And I'm right now. Well, I say we're in the process of editing.
Yeah.
And it's great to have a little team with us, helping us refine and get it where it needs to be. And I have a deadline coming up right now, actually.
We're turning in, we turned in designs. We're turning the designs this morning, right after this podcast. And then you're turning in the finished product of the book on Friday, I think.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, this is the first book we've self-published. So it's
an entirely new experience.
Yes. And just so you know, it's not the full Wild West. Like we have some amazing partners who are helping us with distribution and kind of coming alongside us for this process, which has been amazing. We could not have done it without those guys. So, it's not just us on our own, which is nice. But it was really cool seeing the Austin and I were and our designer were printing out the cover and trying to fold it on a book, and then I was driving it to your house to show you what it actually looked like on the book, because it's one thing to see it in design, and then it's another to see it on your phone in an image, and then it's also the background image of my phone for the last also McLaren's FaceTimed me like 4 times just now. Shout out McLaren Lewis and Mosaic London.
That's so amazing.
So amazing. I was trying to catch up with them as I was driving over here. But no, so we were editing, the design of the book that's getting turned in. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be something that people carry around everywhere and give away.
I do too. One of the really interesting, challenging differences is that when you have a publisher like Random House, or you actually have an entire editorial team that's working with you. And so you may actually work through 4 or 5 editors, from, content editors to structural editors to grammatical editors to line editors. I mean, it's a pretty dense process. And now we're doing all that in-house. And so we're the content, structure, grammar, and line editors.
Okay, so how has that been for you? This new process, because you've had good editors, you've had bad editors, not bad editors, but editors you didn't enjoy as much. I'm sure they were great for someone else, but different processes for different books. You've published, I think, over 13 books.
Over 13.
This is 14, I think.
I don't know, somewhere in there,
because you've published like little mini books and little
double digits.
Yeah, double digits, and it's a new experience to publish and self-publish. So how has that been for you?
Well, I think I feel the weight of it incredibly heavy on my end, making sure that the product is exceptional and that we really refine the language, and that it's super, super intentional in every aspect of it. But on the other side of it, I told my wife, Cam, I'm 65, and I can finally just write whatever I want rather than negotiating with the publisher on the subject.
Right.
And that was probably the most frustrating thing for me is to have I'm just going to say that the way I felt it, like to have a 28-year-old editor telling me what subject my audience needed to hear rather than me telling them, going, I know my audience, I know the world I'm in, I know what subjects we should be talking about. And so there's a lot of books I've never written that are my favorite books because I couldn't negotiate it with my publisher that that's the book they wanted to publish because they think in terms of what will sell.
Well, okay. So start it over with this process. You're kind of diving in mid-journey.
Yeah.
So what's that process like when you're approaching a publisher, or a publisher approaches you?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's been different for you at different times.
It is different. Like I didn't write for 5 or 6 years. And when I went back to writing, I called a friend who was an agent. And then I told her, hey, I'm signing you as my agent, but I want you to call HarperCollins, Harper One. I want you to talk to this senior editor. And
at this point in your career, this is your second agent.
Yeah, second one. So I was pretty seasoned. I knew the world. And I knew the senior agent, I'm the editor of Harper One. He had talked to me 6 years before about writing
and you liked
for
him.
them. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew the subject. And I said, tell him the book is going to be called Artisan. And it wasn't called Artisan Soul yet. It was just called Artisan. And it's going to be about human creativity and spirituality. And she said, okay. So she called him, told him the subject. I had one line as a pitch. And he said, yes, we'll take the book.
Cool.
And then they sent me a contract. And I told my agent, you got to go and ask him for this much, which was almost double because my mortgage is due. And if I don't have this much money, I will not be able to pay for my house.
Okay. that might be too much information. I don't
No,
know if that's necessary.
but it's like, and they called him up and they gave me that much.
That's
because I don't negotiate just in an arbitrary way, and the reason is I had very specific goals and objectives I had to reach, and writing has always been really, I see it as like my livelihood. It's what I do for a living in many ways, and pastoring is what I do for my love. you know,
I think you've always explained that your dedication to the church is something that you feel called to do as someone who believes and has faith. That you'd be a part of church whether you were working for it or not. You'd communicate and be and give into Mosaic.
I don't see the church as responsible for my income.
And you never saw Mosaic as your primary source of income or your source of income. You always had speaking or writing books or consulting.
Yeah.
And so that's I think that little nuance is unique. So you always treated writing very, very, very different.
Yeah.
And very like not more professional, but more you're far more structured. In the way that you thought about the way you were designing book deals and the way you wrote your books. And
a lot of times I'd have like 4 or 5 ideas. I'd fly into New York, meet with the president of the publisher and, the senior editors and their marketing and sales team.
That was a fun trip.
Yeah. And
I really enjoyed that.
And I'd pitch, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas until they had an idea. I had an idea that they really liked. And they go, oh, we really like this one. You can do this. And I would still try to sell the idea that I really wanted to write, but rarely would that be the one that would, rise to the top. And so I did see it as a collaboration. Writing with a publisher is a collaboration between you and them. And you both have to find something that you believe in together. And I didn't mind doing that, but I did feel it was incredibly limiting in terms of some of the more unexpected subjects that I wanted to cover, like Mindshift. The only reason I was able to write Mindshift with the publisher is because it was my last book in a contract, and they knew that it was basically over. They really made some terrible mistakes with my book before that. And so I was in a position where I said, hey.
Wait, terrible mistakes. What were the mistakes?
Marketing mistakes.
Also, I liked these guys.
I love them. They're amazing.
They're great. They're a great team.
Yeah. No, look, publishing is, it's sort of like a crapshoot. You're rolling the dice. You're hoping that it's the right title, the right cover, the right moment, the right timing. No, I'm not blaming publishers at all. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're talking about the nuance of the situation.
Yeah. So, with the genius of Jesus, there were a lot of even strategic marketing decisions and different things like that just didn't go well. And so when we came back, I said, hey, I've been talking about doing something in the business world for a long time. Every publisher says yes one day, and then they talk me out of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this anyway. And so we came to an agreement that I would write my last book as a general market business book. And the president even told me, with the senior editor and them, they just weren't sure if I could cross over.
They were brutally honest. Yeah.
They thought my audience wouldn't go with me. I wouldn't pick up a new audience. It would just be a crash and burn kind of situation. So in some sense, they're trying to save me from myself, right?
Yeah.
But Mind Shift ended up doing so much better than The Genius of Jesus, which would be incredibly unexpected. Because you think, oh, I'm a pastor. I started Mosaic. I'm known in this world.
Yeah.
The Genius of Jesus would be a runaway bestseller, and it wasn't.
But also, that was a weird time. It came out in 2020,
right after COVID.
Right after COVID, like the spring, the end of that spring, the early summer, right?
Yeah.
So you were kind of put in this weird spot. I mean, because even MSC, who this is a unique thing. Like Mosaic's not the biggest church. You're not the biggest name.
No.
MSC is not the biggest worship band, but the influence is always really unique.
Yeah.
Because you've always had you've spoken in arenas. I can see. I think for a lot of these massive speakers, especially the younger guys, they grew up listening to you.
Yeah.
You had this incredible influence around the world, which was really unique. And your books have sold, around the world. I think you always compare yourself to, is it going to sell James Clear, Atomic Habits, millions and millions and millions, or The Alchemist, like the second book next to the Bible? Like you.
Yes.
You're harsh on yourself, but I think as a writer, and we had this great conversation with Chad Veach one time at the coffee shop where we ran into each other.
Yeah.
And like, he was telling you, like, you've had an amazing career because your books actually continually sell.
Yeah.
Right. You're not skyrocketing, but you're building. Your books always build on each other.
Yeah. Most writers would be happy to have sold more than 1 million copies of their books.
And you have.
Yes.
And you're right. And so,
but I do not consider that. It's funny. I don't consider that.
You don't consider that success, and it drives me crazy. But I will say this: The Genius of Jesus was unique because I actually really loved that book, and I think it was an amazing concept. It did suffer at the time because of, I think, what was going on and how tumultuous the world was. Given there were books that skyrocketed during COVID, but it wasn't that type of book, and so.
But it's even the odd intersection of ideas. What we found was that. When I use the word genius, the book instantly becomes suspect to Christians because wait a minute, why would you call Jesus a genius? He's God. I mean, I would get a lot of intense opposition going, Jesus wasn't a genius, he's God. And so they saw it as sacrilegious. And then when you use the word Jesus in the cover, all the non-Christians go, oh, I'm interested in genius, but I'm not interested in Jesus. So not my kind of book. And so it ends up that those two words, genius and Jesus, coming together, eliminated the whole audience. And by the way, I think it's one of the most important books I've ever written. And so regardless of how many people read the book, it's one of the most important books I've ever written. And I think it will be timeless.
It's also a beautiful book. And I do think that book will have another life, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
Because I think it was just a weird COVID situation. Because even that MSC record, and not to compare you to, because music's very different than books, but I do find that they're both consumed at a high level. People love listening and reading to books, and people love listening to music. But that MSC record is one of my favorites. And it didn't perform the way that it should have, mostly because they couldn't tour it.
Yeah.
Right.
But people don't realize the nuances of when I wrote Chasing Daylight, which came out as Seizing Your Divine Moment.
Right.
When it came out as Seizing Your Divine Moment, it had one cover and a different title.
Yeah.
And it sold at first and stopped.
Okay.
And I went back to the publisher and I said, I think it stopped selling because from my research, Seizing Your Divine Moment sounds like something that you should have done already if you're over 28. Because if you live too long, that moment's gone. It sounds like a singular moment.
Okay.
And the cover is confusing. So they let me redo the cover. Found a world-renowned photographer, went out here and shot, and changed the name to Chasing Daylight, which
shot it.
It's a dynamic title.
Yeah.
And the moment we changed the cover and the title, the book sold like wildfire. Same exact content.
Wait, hold on. The white book cover?
No.
Oh, the one. Yeah.
Chasing Daylight. Yeah.
But you know that we re-released Chasing Daylight with the new cover with you on it.
No, but that was later.
Later.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. No, and this is within the first year when it came out. So the title from Seizing a Divine Moment to Chasing Daylight was everything.
And then
it's shifting the cover. made a dramatic shift. It sold like crazy, just changing the title. The content was exactly the same.
Okay, so does that speak to maybe that your first option for titles doesn't work?
Well, it wasn't the title I wanted. See, I'm negotiating titles too.
Okay.
The whole time.
Okay.
So when you're working with publishers, you're negotiating titles, covers. You're basically always fighting because it's an odd dynamic. You have a sales team that's fighting for what they think will sell. You have a marketing team that's fighting for what they think they can market.
Right.
You have a publisher who's actually working for whatever saves costs, and then you have the writer, and depending on the writer. So me, I'm extremely aesthetic. So the artistry of the cover is really important, but it's not important at all to the sales team. They want an ugly cover that sells like crazy.
Well, they don't know, and that's the unique thing, right? Because we've gone back and forth because some publishers, some books you've published, you created the cover. Some books they've created the cover.
Yeah.
And it's a hard game to play sometimes.
Very, very challenging.
Right? Because you kind of are you're in someone else's hands in that way. And one of my, I really liked, I've really enjoyed, Barbarian Way was really unique because that was kind of the book that like jettisoned. But let's we're getting into publishing. Let's talk about Seven Frequencies. Seven Frequencies. Why Seven Frequencies? Where did you come up with this idea? I know we've talked about it in touches over the past, but where did it come from? And how did that come to you?
Well, you have to kind of go back to a request that my wife Kim had asked for decades. Please teach people how to communicate. Please teach people how to communicate. And then you joined that choir with her. You need to teach people how to communicate. And so then out of that, we created the Art of Communication, which was, I think like a 6-hour masterclass that we sold, and it had an immediate response. And it was a high ticket product, so it was expensive. But it really was a really comprehensive, almost like a PhD level course in communication. Then out of that, you came back and said, could you create a free product, a 30-minute teaching or something like that we could just give away to people?
Yeah.
And I said, like what? He goes, just anything around communication. And I think that was like on a Thursday. So Friday, I go into my head and I start thinking through, okay, what can I create? What can I give away to the world? And I began to see the frequencies. And I spent that weekend in cold sweats, insomnia. I felt like I was downloading all this content, even to the point where Kim saw me like at 5 in the morning. I was drenched in sweat. And she goes, what's wrong with you? And I said, I can't stop hearing, like receiving what's coming. I was just writing and writing and writing. And she thought I'd lost my mind. And
sometimes you're borderline. We're not sure.
But it does feel like sometimes you're just absorbing something.
Right.
And translating it to the world. So by Monday, when it was time to film, because you guys set up the cameras for me to come film my 30-minute, whatever free giveaway, I said, okay, guys, I got something. Yeah. And it's called the 7 Frequencies of Communication. And you go, okay. And then I don't remember how many hours I taught. It was 4 hours.
Yeah, you did like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Well, you sent me the doc in a notes doc. You shared it with me on iPhone. And I was like, well, this isn't the free thing. This is so much content. Like we probably should shoot. Let's shoot this. Let's see how long we can shoot it for. And then let's see what this is. And it was really unique because, it was early on in that process of even discovering the frequencies and you were still kind of working things out. And it was really, we sat in as a team, and Articom was different because you had taught those principles at Mosaic
over decades,
for decades, and you had gone to different churches and different groups, and you were always like, it's not something you like, it was not part of like the thing that you were building. You just would always kind of drop these the 5 elements of communication. It was something that you had built in our church, and then 7 Frequencies was completely blue ocean. It was super new. So our team really didn't have the answers and couldn't really hold you to like, okay, no, this connects to this. We were learning it as you were teaching it, and then trying to also edit it and try to build it with you.
And then we did a staff retreat. Where I began to assess the team based on the 7 frequencies, and we had different people come up, and we charted their frequencies based on their like primary core frequency that cluster of dominant frequencies, which frequencies were furthest from them, and then had the whole team that knew everyone guess what the frequencies were. And it was so much fun. I realized this is such an exciting self-awareness process.
Yeah.
And it's a great team building process. It's a way to understand each other. Yeah, I felt like we were able to see when people didn't understand someone.
Yeah.
And had misinterpreted who they were and how they communicated, and that can become a point of friction if you don't understand a person's communication frequency and their approach and how to listen to them. And so out of that came an entirely new universe that I think can revolutionize human communication, which I think is very exciting.
The unique thing about this, so then you created this, and we did the staff retreat thing, and you were breaking everyone down, and it was actually really interesting because that helped us understand how people perceive people and how people perceive themselves.
Yeah,
and then you walked them through kind of really more their structure of their top 3 frequencies, and it's really cool because even now, as we're reading through the book and we're getting through the new edits, and I got a link the other night, so I'm gonna read through the new chapters, which I'm really excited about. Which, by the way, just a little caveat, you can pre-order the book on this episode.
Can you?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you can click the link in this episode and pre-order the book. And what's really exciting, I was about to tell us in the story, is we create an assessment around it.
Yes.
So it's a quick, I think it's 15-minute assessment you can take online, and it'll give you your top frequencies. And then you can dive into kind of how that plays into your relationships, your life, your business, your career, different people that you communicate with. And it gives you the frequency in which you most lead with, which I think is really unique. And it's really cool because even with the arena community that we have that meets every week online, we've been having these conversations around frequencies because they've watched this masterclass course, and then they'll bring into these questions going, I think I'm leading with, I won't say the frequencies now, but the 7, and how do I adjust, or how do I bring in my bottom frequency and lead with that? And can I do that? Or are we stuck in our specific frequency? And so it's really interesting. And it's kind of this, it's so unique because I think, people love Enneagram, people love Strength Finder, people love Myers-Briggs and MBTI and Keirsey and horoscopes. There's all of these things that people talk through, and I think people are on this journey of self-discovery. People want to learn about themselves and understand how they interact with other human beings. Yeah. And I was even having this conversation with my sister about how can we communicate better at a higher level? Are we hearing each other? Am I speaking the way you need to be spoken to? Are you, it's not just about what we send out, but how we receive. And so this is really unique. And the cool thing about this is okay, I'm gonna ask this as a question.
No, finish that. The cool thing
about it is it's almost this plug-in to your life. So this can work within your organization. This can work within your relationships. This can work within your business or your church or your organization or your C-suite. And it's about communication. So it feels it's light. You're right. Like I think sometimes with like the MBTI or the Keirsey, you're being told who you are. That's really scary for people. And there's certain elements in this, but I think what the cool thing about the book is that it also talks you through how to be positive with your frequency and also the negative of your frequency, and your strengths and weaknesses, which I think is really unique. So this is what I'm asking you is because this is more of an open source book, which meaning the book isn't necessarily a Christian bookstore book or a mainstream bookstore. How do books get put into different boxes? That's unique for me. Sorry, that's not a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is this. Where does this book live in a bookstore?
Yeah, I think it probably would fall into the personal development, business development space.
So can churches use this and pastors use this?
Well, I mean, I hope pastors really use it because it could radically alter the way that you communicate on Sunday.
Okay.
And connect at a more deeply human level with people. And so, for me, I mean, so many examples in the book are about one-on-one relationships, about parenting relationships, about marriage relationships, about just everyday human relationships. And so the dominant applications in the book are not about you standing on a stage speaking. Right. That maybe 1% of the people who read the book will be people standing on stages, but 99% of them will be people whose success and failure depends on their ability to communicate. Let me up that 100%.
Everyone.
100%.
Communication is essential to life.
Yeah, and so that's why I think the book is so universal. I do want to say this, even though you said it was a 15-minute assessment, it's taken us a whole year to develop that assessment.
Right, that is the irony, right? No,
Yeah.
because now we're almost 2 years.
2 years?
Almost 2 years. When it releases,
Austin is saying up.
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
like, because I mean, think from when you walked in with 7 frequencies to us figuring out how to develop an assessment, to then finding the right people, to then workshopping it, to then what kind of content do you receive when you get it? Like it's deep.
Yeah, this assessment has been a worldwide project.
Yeah. No, it wasn't 15 minutes to create.
Yeah,
it's been honed in so that you can in 15 minutes decipher what type of frequencies you.
I think if you take the assessment, you get your primary frequency, and then we'll make the other frequencies available. But I want to make sure that all those frequencies are available when you're in a coaching situation. Because one of the things I've discovered is that when you get information without coaching, you can really misinterpret it and actually misapply it. So it ends up getting worse, not better. And so I think it's really important to not just enter at a primary level, but if you really have a commitment to becoming the best communicator you can, you want to go on a deep dive. And I think that's what's exciting, is that there's a universe here. You can just go in and you can keep growing and growing and growing, depending on your own hunger to learn how to communicate effectively.
Yeah, the cool thing about self-publishing, and I mean, publishing is the thing I grew up around just as much as church, which is really cool for me because I've always really enjoyed it. And I've really enjoyed some of the people you've worked with, and we've built great relationships. And so it's cool to have had these experiences with publishers. But one thing that I find publishers really didn't do well was their PR marketing, unless they struggle with.
They don't really do marketing and PR.
No, because I think they really heavily revolve around signing people who already have a built-in audience, right? And that's natural. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't necessarily have the ability to like upgrade your audience or increase your audience.
No.
They can get your book into bookstores, and they can get your book in front of, the right people.
They can also help you refine your book to produce the best product.
Yes. They're a great development space.
Yeah. Editorial space. That's what you want to find if you're looking to work with a publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily,
and I've had great editors.
Luckily, we have, I think, an amazing team here that's really helped develop your book, which is exciting. But also, people don't know that when you would present a book to the publisher, once you've turned it in, you had heavily edited your books. You would have teams of people that you would bring in that would workshop and work through and edit grammar. Like, you were annoyingly meticulous about the way you would present your book back to the publishers, and you made their lives a lot easier when it came
when I sent in my first book, An Unstoppable Force, they told me it was the best edited book they'd ever received in their life.
Yes. Which I to this day, I want to re-release that book with that first chapter being broken up, because your first chapters are way too long, and this book, we have conquered this mountain.
Well, I don't know. My first chapter is still, to me,
is it still long?
Yeah, the first chapter is the opus. The first chapter is explaining your view of reality.
Yes,
and then you go into how to live out that reality every time. That's the same with Mindshift.
Yeah,
the first chapter is what's this new view of reality, and then specific applications.
So what I'm excited is we created a new company, Arena Publishing.
We did.
Well, Arena, I think it's Arena Publishing.
Yeah, something like that.
We're calling it Arena, but it's our publishing section, a division of what we're building in the Arena, which I think is really exciting. So we have the new logo. It got put on the printed book. It was so exciting for me. I was like, man, this is awesome. It's different when it comes into fruition. But I was gonna say about self-publishing is that the cool thing is we just can kind of do whatever we want. So we can build an entire ecosystem around this book, which I'm just really excited about as like a creative and someone who gets to work alongside of someone I care about so much and know what I can kind of get out of you, and know that in the past you've had these incredible ideas, but with publishers, it's just different. Yeah. So being able to work as more of like a creative team that creates this beautiful content and go, okay, we can get as nerdy and granular on this assessment as we'd like. We can also make it beautiful and accessible. And within the book, we can talk about the assessment. So you can read the book, take the assessment, send the assessment to friends, send the book to friends. And it just builds, I think, the lifespan of the book even more. Because that's the one thing with books in the past where I'm like, I wish I could go deeper. I wish I could connect with the author a bit more. And I'm sure people have differences on this. I'm sure some authors think this is like the, I'm sure J.D. Salinger would hate what we're doing. But my man only really wrote 4 books. So, I really am excited about when people access this book, that it isn't just the book. It is the world you've kind of created around it.
The book is really an invitation into a world.
Yeah.
Which for me is very, very exciting.
And sorry, I'm just excited. I'm actually just excited and vibing on this. But like, Strength Finders is an awesome book that kind of goes with Strength Finders, but I always found it to be too heady. And it was too professorial or too detailed maybe on the strengths, whereas like this is actually a book you read and there's a journey. And there's also these descriptions of the frequencies. So it isn't just this is the primary frequency, read about its attributes. It's like, no, you're telling a story.
Well, for me, the book still has to be poetic.
Right.
It still has to be compelling.
Yeah. Although you burned me on one of the stories about me. The story about, it's funny.
I can't remember which story.
When I was younger and I said, what if this is my authentic self? I read that chapter and I was in New York and I was like, highlight, circle. This has got to go.
Everything I read in there is true.
Why is the only story about me some like negative one?
Well, that was hilarious. I thought that was very, very funny.
Yeah.
And I do think you've actually been on a very powerful journey to find your authentic self and to find your authentic voice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's a part of the journey for all of us, and
well, can I ask you about that? Because I've tried speaking for 7 years, and you really developed and really worked with me a lot. I mean, a lot of it just came with you have to go up and do the announcements. You have to go up and do the hosting every week, 5 services a Sunday for years, and suffer through it and watch yourself and get better. And it's tough because I think LA is a bit of a hard, LA kind of can be a hard audience.
Oh yeah. The first time you ever get up there, all these 22-year-olds want to come tell you how to do it better.
Oh, I mean, I remember a young actor came up to me and said, you really should take acting classes. And I remember going like, but I don't want to be an actor. I don't want to pretend. I want to just be me. And it was so hard to find my authentic self. And it was hard to do it in LA. Most people try in in kids' church or in youth group for half a decade to a decade before they ever step on a main stage.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that. So the cool thing for me being around you is having, you did help develop me in that space. I still struggle so much. But I did find that I was more natural in the podcast space. It wasn't naturally good. We've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. I'm working on it. I'm not cutting you off as much. That was always the biggest critique. I do get excited. But how do you help people find their authentic, maybe medium or platform for how to communicate?
Yeah, I think that the best media to start with is whichever medium you don't feel you need to perform.
Okay.
And sometimes that could just be a small group. Sometimes it could just be friends, you begin a conversation with. It's interesting. I was just watching this interview with Steven Spielberg, and he was asked what's his favorite movie that he didn't make.
Oh, what did he say?
He said Lawrence of Arabia, which is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorites when I was young. Very long.
Very long.
But one of the things he said, he goes, the reason I love Lawrence of Arabia is that the main character doesn't know who he is. So he lives with this extraordinary sense of loneliness. And he only knows himself based on what other people think of him and what other people say about him, how others perceive him. And so he goes, this is a story that could have been filmed only with close-ups because it's really about his personal angst of not knowing himself. But it's filmed in this massive cinematic background, giant deserts and, it's gorgeous.
It was a great epic.
Yeah, it was an epic film.
Yeah.
And so it's an intimately epic film or an epically intimate film.
Yeah.
And what really struck me was Spielberg's favorite character of all time is someone whose entire life journey is scarred by not knowing himself. And this is the conversation we're talking about, is how do you discover your authentic self? Well, as long as you're held captive by the opinions of others and your identity is dominantly shaped by what other people say about you and think about you, you will never know yourself. You really have to come to a place where what other people say is irrelevant to your identity. And that is a lifelong journey. I'm not saying that's easy, but I do think it can shift. It can shift from a life of image management, completely worried about or concerned or shaped by what other people say, to one that has a deep sense of self that says, I know who I am. And that is, that doesn't mean you like who you are. See, I think that's part of it, is that when you come to know yourself, you may not like yourself. Everyone assumes that when you come to know yourself, you'll like yourself.
Right.
You may go, oh, wow, I see myself and I don't like who I am. And so I need to do the hard work of changing and growing and developing. But a lot of times that growth is avoided because we pretend we're someone else. And sometimes it's because we're actually trapped in self-loathing. We hate ourselves. And so we like who people say we are better than we like who we see ourselves to be. And I think a part of finding your authentic voice is accepting the fact that when you see yourself, you may not like yourself fully, but you have to learn how to love yourself and go, I can love myself and still not like everything about me. But what I will love is that I'm willing to grow and change and develop as a human being. That's when you find your authentic voice.
Please tell me you added this to the book.
No, this is all new.
We got it. The Lawrence of Arabia story is not in the book?
No.
We got to get that in the book.
And
We still have 3 days. We can put it in the book.
We'll just have to write another book on authenticity.
And knowing yourself. I think.
Knowing yourself.
Yeah. So how, okay. I'm just really like this.
Yeah.
I'm just excited. And I'm excited to just see where this goes and also be able to tell the stories we want to tell and release the books we want to release and really just help, because I think there's a part of it, right? Is that we're created and we're alive and we live this beautiful human journey and it's reflected. And so like, there's so many stories and books and podcasts and songs on albums that would connect us and pull us out of ourselves and then help us see ourselves in a way and also help us see our relationship to our faith and help us see our relationship to the people around us. And like, there's just, without a doubt, there's no question that Yellow by Coldplay has a specific frequency, right?
Yeah.
Or these songs, by Radiohead have this specific frequency that can just permeate our souls.
Yeah. Think about the difference between the frequency of Yellow by Coldplay and Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find all 7 frequencies in a significant musical piece in history. But I was thinking about, Juno, Mariah's little girl who's 3, just turned 3.
She's an angel.
But she definitely has like a commander frequency.
I mean, she walked into your house yesterday and sees me and goes, Rowie, come.
Yep.
And she marches, she's in her little tutu.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's grown 7 feet. Like she's just big. She was all belly before, now she's just stretched out. And she's got her little ponytail because she has wildly curly hair. And she's, Rowie, come. Dad, stay.
Yep.
Jake is looking at her laughing. And I'm looking at her like, okay, I'm going to come with you. And we go to the kitchen and she's trying to tell Alexa what to do.
Yeah. And even when she speaks in an unintelligible language, you can tell it's all command. I don't know what she's saying to who, but I do know they better obey. and then I watch her and I see, this interesting, performer, and she knows how to get what she wants, or, she becomes she can also become manipulative, but I only see them from the positive side of the frequencies. Yeah. But you can actually watch the frequencies develop in children, whether it's the challenger or the motivator, and there's a person who helps take care of her, and she fell on the stairs. Yeah. And even though the woman didn't cry, Juno started crying uncontrollably. Instantly that healer frequency just came out.
Wait, the woman fell in the stairs.
Yeah.
Is she okay?
Yeah, she's fine. It was just one stair.
Okay.
But she slipped, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but Juno just began crying uncontrollably because she just loves her.
Oh, wow.
And so you just see the natural flow of like this healer frequency, this motivator frequency, the challenger frequency, the commander
How it plays
frequency,
out.
you know, and she just ebbing and flowing. And I just wonder, as we grow as human beings, do we give up the 4 or 5 natural frequencies that just flow out of us to like one primary one because it's the one that helps us get what we want?
Yes.
Or, you know, we fit in better into the world that we're in, or whatever it may be. And so you can see it begin to form and develop over time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back because it's exciting news to me that you can go to, is it my website?
You can just go to the link in the bio of this episode, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching or listening, and you can access this. You can also go to erwinmcmanus.com, and there'll be in the book section, it'll probably be on the homepage where you can pre-order the book. You can also pre-order the assessment, and you can get that started. And we're gonna have audiobook. We're gonna have, you know, the actual book. You're also gonna be available, hopefully, in even more bookstores come the fall.
So I will say, because we're self-publishing,
yes,
if you pre-order, you have a guarantee to get a book right away, because we're going to basically publish as many books as we know are wanted.
Yes.
You know, I do not have a warehouse where we're going to be holding 20,000 books waiting for you to order. So the book will definitely sell out. If you wait till that day to order, it's going to take you a while. It'll be back ordered. So if you can pre-order now, you'll be insured to get a book the moment it's ready to ship.
Yeah. So, and you'll hear about it on this podcast continuously between now and then, but do us a solid and go and pre-order that book right now, right as you're listening to this. This is a great book to also gift to a friend. So buy one for yourself, buy one for your book club.
Your team.
Yes, go and do it. And then do the assessments together and walk through it. And then we're going to really build this world out. So I'm really excited.
I am so excited too. I cannot wait for this book to hit the streets and begin a global conversation about how do we communicate most effectively with each other.
Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy. All right.
We both stopped. Oh, man. Cool.